Hello, my darlings, and welcome to All the Things with me, your host, Amanda Pretch. And whether you're listening on the YouTube channel, Apple, Spotify, wherever you're listening to this podcast, welcome or welcome back, as this is now episode 3. So today I wanted to do something a little bit different, and I wanted to have kind of a little bit of a ramble, and we're going to be a little less structured, but as we are now in October, that we are now in Q4. We're speeding towards the end of the year. So a lot of things with like business and leadership type goals, but also just in general, this is the point of the year where we're starting to have more reflection. We're starting to get ready to wrap things up. We're getting into the holiday season. We're starting to think about the coming year ahead. Maybe we're already starting to think about our New Year's goals that we're setting. Maybe we're taking some time, which you should be if you're not, to reflect back on 2025 and how everything has gone so far, right? And what you're planning on for 2026. We're in that time of the year. It is starting, it has begun, right? And I'm starting to see so much content about it. And I've been doing a lot of reflecting myself about this. And so I wanted to just kind of go real off the cuff and talk about it with you because I think it's really important. Something that I do every day is reflect, and I do it throughout the day. So it's not just like a one-time thing for me. It's something that I notice that I have integrated kind of more as I've gotten older, but definitely something that I've just always done. When I was younger, I was a girl with a diary and I wrote every day, sometimes twice a day. Now I do things a little bit more digital just because of all of the things that I have going on. But I think that reflection is so important, right? And every time that we get to this time of the year, it can be easy to kind of go a couple different ways. So I wanted to take some time to talk about that because we're all getting into that. And this has a lot to do with leadership, self leadership, your own personal growth and development, right? So, first of all, I will say that I know we already talked about my BEA framework, and we will get back to that and get into that more in detail. But another thing that I use every day is what I call the 3 R's. So reflect, reassess, reevaluate. This is how we are constantly using our self awareness, really taking a look at everything, right? This is another broadly applicable thing that you can use for your own life, for your business, for school, whatever it is. This is something that can be used over and over again and should be used. We should absolutely take time every day to reflect on how things went, right? My 2 favorite questions come into play here. What went well? What could be what went well? What could we be doing better? Sorry, I'm starting to get so ahead of myself here. But I think especially during this time of the year, it's something that we're just kind of naturally doing more. And then we're also kind of balancing it with the incoming craziness and stress of the holidays. So I would encourage you now, before we really get into it, because today is October 9th, we kind of have some time, right? We're starting to ramp up towards Halloween, and then we have kind of that little bit of lull between Halloween and Thanksgiving, sort of, right? And then I feel like just before Thanksgiving is when we're really starting to ramp up because we all know that once Thanksgiving hits and then, Christmas and New Year's, and oh my gosh, it all just goes by so fast. So I think the first thing is that you are giving yourself time to reflect daily, but that you're really taking a little bit more time right now to look back at all of 2025. I would be willing to bet that you've accomplished more than you realize. I was doing this for myself and sitting here thinking about it and thinking, man, I'm just really behind on my goals. I am kind of all over the place right now. I've had a lot going on personally, to be very honest with you. And I was just kind of, man, I'm so behind. I'm so behind. And in some ways, I am. I haven't accomplished all of the things that I had set out for 2025. But in other ways, I'm actually really far ahead. And I'm really proud of myself for all of the work that I've done. And then it kind of brought me all the way back to when I started on this journey in 2023. So let's back up a minute. By career, during my day job, if you will, I'm a nurse. And I have been a nurse for 10 years, and I've been with my healthcare system for 15 years, the hospital that I work for. So I've spent a long time in healthcare. In 2023, was really burned out, right? The pandemic was a lot. I was working at the bedside through the majority of the pandemic. And it was in 2021 that I decided to make sort of a shift into a more administrative role. But I was still working at the bedside in the emergency department that I work in on the weekends. So really just working a ton, still maintaining my patient care skills, and really, I hate to say it this way because I'm a big person for when it comes to like work, but it was burning the candle at both ends, if we're being really honest. Now there's nothing wrong with that as long as you are balancing. And I was not balancing things. And I did that for several years, until this time in 2023 when I started getting a lot of content on my social media from other nurses who were making money based on their social media. And then I started to see other moms who were making money selling these courses. And I'm sure you've heard of MRR courses. And of course, that's what sort of sucked me in. And I was like, it's probably too good to be true. But, I'm at a point where I'm so burned out with spending absolutely all of my time. I was spending between 60 and 70 hours a week at the hospital, right? And I have 2 kids. So I was spending more time at the hospital than with my kids. And I was just burned out. And I started seeing this and I thought, if other people can create wealth, extra income online, why can't I? I'm no different. Why can't I try this? And so that was what started me on this journey. And even though there was a part of me that didn't necessarily think that it was going to work, and it didn't the way that I had started, right? And not that I'm sitting here saying that it's worked so wonderfully so far. We're still a work in progress, right? It's what kind of kicked off this whole journey. And I immediately had issues right off the get-go. I went through this course and followed all the recommendations and made a brand new Instagram page that was just dedicated to, my business and selling this course. And in less than a month, it got hacked and I couldn't get in. And it was at that moment that I could have made the choice to stop and say, okay, this isn't for me. I just need to go back to picking up extra shifts at the bedside and, not, trying to balance this out. And, this just isn't for me. I'm going to stop here. But I didn't. I made the choice to double down and start a new account and start tweaking what I was doing and thinking, I don't want to just be selling something somebody else created. I'm a big, it's got to be what I'm doing, right? I'm not just like taking something from somebody else and turning around and selling it. It had to be something I was creating. And so I started down that path, and we've made a lot of pivots. We've done a lot of things. During that time, I decided to drop out of grad school because I was also in grad school full time. I was working on my master's of nursing in nursing administration. Both the boys were in sports over the winter. They're both wrestlers. And then obviously working my full-time job, picking up the extra hours in the ER still at this point, and then now trying to, create this business. And it's funny because things are still are still going very slowly, but I really took the time to reflect and go, 2023 I had a rough start, and then 2024 I made all these pivots, and then 2025, okay, the year's not done. We still have time to work on our goals. But 2025 I have seen the most growth. I started the year at just a few hundred followers on one account. And I have now, I have several accounts. I have this podcast. I have a YouTube channel. I have grown to just over, across all of my platforms, just over 17,000 followers. And I get that that doesn't sound like a lot. There's people that have more, but you have to look at the journey, right? And so that's the whole point about this reflection. It's very easy to kind of get into that more negative headspace and say to yourself, man, I just really haven't, I haven't accomplished my goals. I'm not where I want to be, and forget how far you've come. So this is why I love reflection so much, because when you really stop and you give yourself the time to look back at what you have done, instead of just thinking, well, I haven't done this, right? It's really eye-opening. And more often than not, I find in my reflections, I am pleasantly surprised, because as somebody that's very hard on herself, so many of us are, right? It's a really great thing to be able to do for yourself. We don't want to be seeking external validation, right? External validation is nice. It makes everybody feel good, but we want to be able to validate ourselves and our work and our accomplishments and be proud of ourselves. That's a huge part of self-leadership, right? You need to lead yourself through that. You need to acknowledge and celebrate your own accomplishments, right? And then how much more are you able to do that for others? You can add that value to them. You can help inspire and support other people to do the same thing for themselves. I think that's so important. So that's why I wanted to talk about this today, because this time of year can go a couple of different ways for people. I can go many different ways. It's not just a couple, let's be honest about it. But I wanted to share that with you so you got a little perspective for yourself, because maybe you're finding that you're in a similar boat where you're starting to reflect, and maybe you're not in a space that you wanted to be. Full transparency, I am not in a space that I want to be yet with everything that I am trying to achieve and accomplish. I have really big goals. I mean, you can see clearly, I depending on what platform you're listening to me on, I'm a newbie to this. There's not a whole lot of activity going on. But the one thing that I have learned is that, consistency, you often hear people say consistency is key. And you guys know, even in the 3 short episodes that I've been here with you, that I'm a huge John Maxwell fan. And John Maxwell talks about the fact that consistency compounds. And so that's another important point in your reflections when you're looking at what you've done, what you've achieved. Think about how consistent you've been in what you're trying to achieve. Have you been consistent, or have you just kind of, tried a little bit and it didn't work out, so you just kind of let it go, right? Or did you use that failure to help push you forward? Personally, I'm a big fan of using your failures and studying them and learning from them. There's always something to learn from your failures. And failure is, in fact, the flavor of success, I think. Because even if we do something well the first time, don't we want to do it better? Don't we want to keep improving, right? That's a big thing with growth. You want to keep doing better. You want to keep going. So another important layer to add into this very ADHD ramble on reflection, but I thought it was important to just kind of say what's on my heart today, and get this out there to you, because I have learned in my time doing this, number one, backing up to what I was saying about consistency compounding, that when I look back, at everything that I've done. I have seen that growth. I can recognize it not just in the actual like data and metrics, but also in myself, how I have grown and further developed as a human. Um, so that's important, right? Don't put everything into too much. You need to look at it through a broader lens than, oh, I've only made this amount of money, or I've only had this amount of views or engagement, or whatever metric it is that you're looking at, right? Um, but also that oftentimes we think that either everybody already knows what we're going to say, or we sometimes don't say things because we think, well, it's gonna sound silly and maybe nobody's gonna find it helpful. And if you're somebody like me, when it comes to sharing my stories and my experience, my sincerest hope is that what I share with all of you is in fact helpful. That it maybe is just that little, something that you needed to kind of help you see something more clearly or understand something a little bit differently, right? And it's not going to be for everyone, and it's not meant to be. But sharing our stories is so helpful and so powerful. So sitting here in reflection and sharing these little pieces with you, I'm hoping that there's something that you can take away, especially because I did this very unscripted without any sort of an outline and just let myself kind of, as I say, bleh, to get all this out to all of you, because I think it's really important to speak and to share. So with that, we will conclude episode 3 of All the Things. Thank you so much for joining me. If you found this helpful or you enjoyed the content, make sure to like, subscribe, leave me some comments, let me know your thoughts and feelings. And I will see you all for episode 4. Bye.